I am honoured to be receiving the Juvenile Justice Without Borders International Award from the International Juvenile Justice Observatory, the IJJO, an organisation I have known and worked with in a number of different ways for many years. I was first invited to present a plenary address at an IJJO conference in Brussels in 2006. I then served as president of the Scientific Committee for its International Congress in Andalusia in 2007, before being appointed as an academic member of the European Council for Juvenile Justice in 2009, a position I continue to hold to this day. During this long association, I have witnessed the reach of the IJJA grow and develop in such a way that it now enjoys a truly global presence. In addition to the European Council for Juvenile Justice, the IJJO has established similar councils in Africa, the Asia-Pacific region, Latin America, North America and the Middle East, and so it is humbling to have my work recognised by an agency with such a commanding global presence. I am further humbled to be joining the highly prestigious company of previous recipients of the Juvenile Justice Without Borders International Award, many of whom I respect and admire for their outstanding contributions to the global juvenile justice project. I have been directly engaged with juvenile justice for most of my adult life. Beginning in the early 1980s, I spent 12 years employed in practice and operational management positions in both local government and non-governmental organisations that provide services for children and young people in distress, including those in conflict with the law. I took up my first university position in 1993, and since then I have spent 25 years engaged with social science research and teaching, during which time juvenile justice has remained a core focus of my work. So taken together, this amounts to almost 40 years engagement. Given such a lengthy engagement with juvenile justice, it might appear strange to some to learn that I am not, and never have been, principally interested in juvenile crime. This is not to say that the study of juvenile crime is not in itself an important subject for inquiry, and that such study remains and that always has been a feature of my work. But I'm far more interested in processes of criminalisation and related questions of justice and injustice. That is to say, selective processes of criminalisation, whereby particular constituencies of children and young people, the poorest, those drawn from the most damaged, distressed and disadvantaged families, neighbourhoods and communities, and too often minority ethnic and racialised groups, are swept up by juvenile justice systems around the world and often exposed to quite profound forms of injustice. I'm especially interested in the interfaces between juvenile justice, international law and human rights standards, and more specifically still, much of my work is focused and continues to focus on the conditions of treatment of children and young people held in penal detention. Of course, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child is probably the most widely ratified human rights instrument in the world. It is also amongst the world's most widely violated instrument. And of all the children and young people who have their human rights compromised, if not denied, those in conflict with the law are especially vulnerable. This is a constituency of young human beings who are not only deemed to have transgressed the law, but who often appear to inconvenience those with power and to offend adult sensibilities in such ways that they are frequently cast as an unwanted, unworthy and undeserving subpopulation, and this in turn can give licence to widespread neglect and maltreatment. Nowhere is this more evident than in penal detention. It is instructive that we don't actually know with any level of certainty precisely how many children and young people are detained in prisons and other penal institutions around the world. The conservative estimate is 1 million, and although that almost certainly falls well short of the mark, it also signifies that at least 1 million children and young people woke up this morning in prisons and will fall asleep this evening, if they manage to sleep at all, in the very same prisons. My work has taken me into many penal institutions holding children and young people in various parts of the world. Of course, the conditions vary, but all are deeply sad and distressing places. Taken together, prisons for children represent a stain on the human condition, a serious failing and a profound violation of base human rights. There simply have to be better ways of doing juvenile justice. Earlier this year, I was appointed to the Expert Advisory Board that is supporting the United Nations Global Study on Children Deprived of Liberty, a study being led by Manfred Novak, Professor of International Human Rights at the University of Vienna and previously a United Nations Special Rapporteur on torture. I am hopeful that by shining a light on children deprived of liberty in various contexts around the world, the UN study will help to drive our efforts towards doing juvenile justice and addressing troubled and troublesome children and young people in ways that are both effective and respectful of their needs and rights. Of course, I am also keenly aware that such efforts may meet with resistance. In fact, I have very recent experience that shows that those with power and authority can be resistant to independent inquiry in the field of child detention and to respond in ways that obstruct transparency, evade accountability and impede learning. But throughout all of my work, I've had the privilege of meeting extraordinarily talented, energetic and determined people from all corners of the world, and I am confident that our collective efforts will ultimately overcome such challenges and resistance, and that together we will succeed in delivering justice for all of our children and young people. I'm enormously grateful to the IJJO. I'm deeply honoured to be receiving the Juvenile Justice Without Borders International Award, and I especially want to take the opportunity to acknowledge my many colleagues, friends and family who have inspired and supported me for so many years. Sincere thanks to you all.